And well, last time, well, in the last chapter, we talked about the theories of teaching, but today we're going to the other side of the coin. We're going to the theories of learning. In this specific context, L2 learning, learning a second language. And while we may think it's the same thing, it actually changes a lot because we're going to be having a small conversation and discussions here so that you can think a little bit about it. But yeah, the theories of learning, the thing here is that these theories are actually really new. They're like from this century more than anything. There were some beginnings in the last century almost at the end, but most of these theories are super modern. And when I mean modern, I mean 2007, 2010. I think there is one from the 2000s, but everything here is like brand new. We're still developing it. A lot of researchers are still working on these theories. Maybe one day we will also work on them, like researchers and not only learners. But well, the first thing we have here is what affects the way we learn? The question goes for everyone here. What do you think affects the way you learn? For example, Alma, what affects you when you want to learn something?
Attention, interest.
Okay, attention, interest.
Sorry, that's my dog.
Don't worry, don't worry.
Giving her opinion about learning also.
And it's really important, trust me. Yeah, I understand. I have 2 dogs and a cat. I know how it goes. So yeah, don't worry about that.
And it's interesting in the way how it affects the learning also, because if you have a reliable or comfortable environment, I think you learn better.
That is something we're actually going to touch today. So yes, it's a great point that you bring it. Geronimo, tell me, what affects the way you learn?
Well, for me, Alma mentioned the interest, also a good motivation. It's very important. The environment, of course, affects. And maybe the way I learn my first language, it's involved.
All right, I like it. Begonia, over there, same questions. If you're available to speak, I know sometimes students cannot speak in the environment they are, be it kids, teenagers, adults. I know that happens.
It's okay, thank you.
Okay, cool.
I was only just going to say environment is really important, and that affects, like you can be more open one day and then the next you are not because of the environment or because the way you are feeling. Emotions will affect also.
That is the main part here. Emotions is also something really important we're going to cover. Now, over there in the book, the main introductory chapter, paragraph, talks about how the different aspects that affect a learner. This case, they focus mainly on language learning, not so much learning in general, but we have confidence. When you're learning a language, confidence is really important. Tell me, when you were learning your English or maybe a third language, French, Italian, whatever, didn't you feel like bad when you didn't have confidence? Like someone told you like, I don't want to speak, I don't want to try because they're going to mock me, and you lack confidence. Does that affect you?
I just had a student last week. She even asked me to call her on the phone because I'm working hybrid and she is not, she's online. And she told me that she's really afraid of participating. She knows, she doesn't know as much as some of her classmates, but she's like in the intermediate. And she told me, I don't trust myself to speak in front of the group yet.
That's the key point here. Yet we have to help them with that. Yes, confidence. It's something that affects us, especially when we are talking about a communicative skill. If we don't have the confidence to actually speak or communicate, it's going to be really difficult to completely acquire a language. We also have the anxiety, the nervousness when we're like, oh, I don't want to speak, I feel scared, just like the example Alma just gave us. The cognitive ability, the way we think also affects us. Now, even if some people say that, and they actually touch this point here, everyone has a different rate of learning, and they all have a different abilities that they can excel or have some problems. That is also something that affects us. Some people are really good listening. Some other people, even due to physiological reasons, maybe they're not that good at listening. That affects too. Well, so the attitude, this is like one of the hardest ones. I think we as teachers, we all have had one student that just doesn't want to learn because they say, why do I need English? Why do I need another language? I only speak Spanish. They refuse to learn. And that makes it really difficult because they can learn eventually, but if they don't want to, it's going to be extra difficult. That is something we also need to take into consideration. And also the willingness, like I said, how much they want to do it. Like, let's see, Alma, are you interested in astrophysics?
Not much.
Okay, so I don't think you're interested in learning that, right? So it would be difficult for you.
It would be difficult, maybe just out of curiosity, what is the science, the field of study, and not much more.
But that's it. Your willingness has a limit. You reach the basic, and after that, you close yourself. You're like, no, I don't need anymore. The same thing happens here. How much they want to learn is going to affect us. And well, we all have students that want to really dominate the language. We have students who only want to pass a subject to get a grade. And after that, it becomes difficult. They fulfill their goal, and this willingness disappears. And this is something we really need to be careful. Now, after this done, this is pretty much the way or the main factors that affect learning. Now we have all the theories and the approaches that that a lot of researchers started to, to move it on, to start to sorry, distracted me. That they started to propose, right? In this case, the first one that we have is the interactionist approach. In the book, they mention different theories. I'm not going to call them by name. I'm just going to give them like the general idea of these approaches so that you don't have to like read everything. This is like the main ideas. So the main thing here, and this is the first theory, the first idea, it was a controversial one because they couldn't replicate their findings here. There was no empirical experiments or empirical evidence. So take it as a grain of salt, sorry. And as they did, they proposed really interesting topics and ideas, but they're not like verified by experiments or actual results. But well, we have the first idea of this approach, that language is developed, not acquired. They changed this because most people have the perception that you learn a language and you speak it, right? Like yes or no. But we know as teachers that learning a language is super complex. Speaking a language is one of the most complex things we humans do. So you don't just, yes, I learned it, no, I didn't learn it. We develop it. Steadily, we start to acquire more. Acquire is used now for other things. In this case, acquiring is used to all the ideas and all the tools you start to gather throughout your development. But you don't acquire a language. You acquire elements of the language to develop your language. So that is why this idea, I really like it. Some people didn't. I personally think that changing it to language development sounds cool and sounds a little bit more fair. But well, we also have that learning is done in two manners, through exposure and through instruction. Exposure is subconscious. These are things that we don't like really pay attention to. Like when we play video games, we listen to music, we watch films. We're learning like a sponge with exposure, but we're not saying, oh, look, that guy, he used the past perfect there. I need to take notes of that. No, we just say like, okay, through context, we start to connect the dots. Or the conscious one, when we have a teacher, we have in modern days, we have an app, we have software to help us, we have virtual classes, we have something helping us. It can be formal or a little bit less informal, like with a friend. And also, the next rule, there was another theory here that honestly, this is the one that they started to like attack a lot. That the rules that they learn through formal education only help students with things they already know, things they acquire through exposure. These rules are only going to help them develop it more. And this is where, according to the book, they start to go a little bit more like, I don't know. So, well, in my case, this is the important part here is for you to develop your own ideas. I think that this is a half truth. Like, yes, rules, grammar drills, all the formal education does help what they have learned, acquired through exposure, but I think that this formal education also launches them to the exposure. So, and well, this is the one that I actually find really interesting. All learners learn in the same order, but at different pace. What do you guys think? Do you think the last point is true?
I think it's true because we even have the proficiency levels in order for you to see which is more, in which level your student is working now or is acquiring the language.
Okay. Okay, that's why we have that part. The interesting part here is how they mention the same order.
Okay, no, not in that part. That they all acquire the language at a different, it says at a different
pace.
Yes, I agree with that.
I totally agree with that too.
In the same order, not necessarily.
Yes, that is where things start to get interesting. They were proposing that everyone learns it at the same order, but at different paces. That's like that's the problem with these theories. They couldn't fully verify them. That's why they are like, okay, that's a cool idea. We're not going to take it as law. But it's a really good approach, like to just think, right? But well, we still have more ideas here. And the last one is the idea that students need input one step ahead to improve. Like you need to learn step by step. You cannot just learn, the verb to be and then jump all the way to conditionals. That students need to learn one step at a time. It doesn't have to be really easy. It doesn't have to be really hard for them. It has to be fair. This is something that was super accepted. And it created the CPD, which we're going to work on later. And then we have two hypotheses that were related to this approach. And well, also, super quick about the order of acquisition. They were also saying that external factors are irrelevant. That if a person is studying in Mexico, in United States, in China, they're going to learn in the same order, but at different paces. Still, take it as you may. This idea was not fully proved, so. But well, in this case, this is the comprehensible output hypothesis is one that we teachers use a lot, right? Here is where we start to meddle with the languages, because here is where we have the idea of modifying language to be comprehensible. Like in this case, do you think, or have you ever had to change the way you speak for a student to understand you? Let's see, Jeronimo, have you ever had to change the way you speak?
Not the way, but maybe the the speed, not to be a little bit
That enters into the way of
lower, but
speaking. Oh, but okay.
yes,
Yes, yes. Okay. So you change the speed, some vocabulary. It always happens. Changing the language to be comprehensible is a really good learning strategy. Learning and teaching. Because if your teacher starts to speak super fast with super high vocabulary, the student is going to get lost. The teacher is not going to teach anything, and it's a lose-lose situation. But if you lower yourself or you change it a little bit, well, then your student is going to be able to, okay, grasp the ideas. Like I said, this is not new, but it is new in the sense that it was written. It was proposed as a hypothesis, because these are the kind of things we take for granted, the things that yeah, well, obviously we changed the way we speak, but it was never like written down. This is a little bit more recent. We have the other part here. Just as they receive input, we need to force our students to produce output in any way, even 2 words, but they need to be forced. Even if they have confidence problems, anxiety, anything, we really need to force them. For example, let's see, Begoña, over there. How do you force a student, in your case, to produce something?
Well, in my case, I have only, or well, I teach more preschool.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, one thing that I have learned is the more you push the kid away.
Okay.
So you have to invite and use strategies, use something they like, something they are into. I don't know, cartoon characters, something like that, so that they can express what they want, and then so they can produce their language.
Okay, I like that idea. Even if it's not that overt, with all those strategies, cartoons, role plays, you're forcing them one way or another. Remember, forcing someone to produce output is not like, come on, you have to speak. No, we're not going to force them like that. We're just using strategies to get something out of them.
Even if you ask them like a lot, like go and participate and call their name every time you can, that is a way to first so you have to try to get the strategies for them to be chosen without them realizing they are chosen by you, so that they can go and participate and produce.
Exactly. We have to be a little bit more discreet in this case. So just be careful of that. It's not always only input. They also need to produce something. And well, we're going to have a small activity here. We have a small text here that, imagine this is for an A1, A2 student. How would you modify this text? It's going to appear to be comprehensible for them, right? We have a small phrase there. According to all laws of physics, it should be impossible for bees to fly due to their size-weight ratio. It is still baffling for scientists that they can soar through the air as they do. Do you think that, let's say, an A2 student, do you think they will get the whole idea here? Like you tell them, read this and tell me what it is about. Maybe they will tell us it's about the bees. Okay, but so we're gonna do one small activity here. I want everyone to think, how would you change this text for a class of yours? Everyone is going to participate, so I'm gonna give you 1 minute to think about it. How would you change this? Because adapting is what we have to do. Because before I give you all the techniques, I want to see how you do it. Okay, I'm going to mute Okairi because I don't know what that sound is, but let me just. All right, so let's get see some phrases. We're going to start Geronimo. How would you change it for a class of yours?
Well, I will try to paraphrase with only basic verbs or actions, like, because it should be impossible, and A1, A2 doesn't know the use of should be,
Okay.
or like according to all laws of physics, like understandable. But the expression like the to fly due to their size, weight, would be like another instruction to change, like more basic.
Mhm.
And the last one also, well, they can soar through the airs as they do. Maybe with a basic also.
Okay, okay. Let's see. We're going to go. Okairi, do you want to try? Well,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Since I work with little kids, right now I have first grade.
Okay.
So I would paraphrase everything.
Yes.
I would change
I'm sure.
all the vocabulary.
Mhm.
So I would basically say that scientists say that it's impossible for bees to fly because they are too big.
Okay.
They
That's it.
still don't know
Mhm.
how they do it. Yeah, something very simple.
Okay, yes, that's a really good way. You lower it down, right? That is the main thing we have to do. Let's see. We're gonna have Alma and Begonia too. So Begonia, we start with you and we finish with Alma. How would you change it?
Okay, in my case, I will start by taking all the vocabulary they know so that they can get the idea,
Okay.
and have them identify also the vocabulary they don't know so that I can use more resources and maybe use pictures and videos so that I
Okay.
can read and match the vocabulary with the whole text with the picture.
Okay, a different approach. In this case, she wants to make sure they understand these phrases. So instead of changing it, she's going to adapt the class to the text. So she's going the other way, but that's still a really good one. Using the images, videos, she's going to slowly but steadily reach there. And maybe, okay, and Alma, how would you modify this text?
I would also use an image, a visual aid, in
Mhm.
order for them to have, like, I am a very visual person, so I think
Okay.
that if you're seeing it, you can come to a conclusion in a faster and easier manner. I would begin with the prior knowledge. What do they already know about bees?
Mhm.
What can they share about bees? And
Okay.
then I would go into presenting the phrase. I wouldn't start presenting the phrase. First an image, their prior knowledge about bees, and according to how much they know, I would adapt the phrase, or like divide it into several sections
Okay,
in
that's
order
a
for
good
them
one.
to understand it.
Okay, I like it. So let me write over here all the strategies that you just gave me. We already had the scaffolding. All right, we have scaffolding, we have division. Alma, that's a really good one, division. We already had over there paraphrasing. We also had use of synonyms. Because maybe we can leave the text, we change a couple of words, like baffling for difficult to understand, or those kind of things. But there are pretty much this, and you also have ellipses, which some of you already said, when we get rid of the difficult parts. Like you focus on the vocabulary that you know, yes, we don't need the rest of it. That is something we need to practice with our students, because a lot of teachers, they give students I don't know, a newspaper's article. Yeah, go crazy. What do you understand? And they're like, wait, no, Come on. So yeah, we need to be able to modify our language for a learner to be comprehensible, right? Okay, this is.
Even,
Mhm.
even for us as adults, it's hard when
It
we are
is.
reading a scientific article or something like that, because you're like, what? What does
Mhm.
that mean? Imagine giving that kind of articles to little kids or teens or whatever.
Yeah, right. Sometimes we read or we watch a video of a super difficult topic, we just don't understand it. But then you go and watch the video of an Indian guy and how he dumps it down, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. So yeah, breaking down things help us a lot. And well, we don't have much left. The most important here, well, not the most important, but the second approach is the socio-cultural approach. Here is what our culture, here's where the environment that you were talking about is going to affect us. Here, they say that our thinking and our learning depends on symbolic meaning. What is symbolic meaning? Well, how our society is, our traditions, our cultures, our family, the rules we have in our house, the rules we have in our jobs, the rules we have in our schools, all those things are going to form the way we think. And that affects the way we learn. So the main concept that we have here is mediation, which is when you use everything in your surroundings, your friends, your resources to negotiate meaning, right? Uh, everything that we do has an action, but the other actions have a meaning for us. Mediation is just that, when our perceptions help us learn. It's going to be bidirectional too. What we do is going to have an impact on someone else and a learning on someone else. And the other way, right? Internalization. Oh, this is one I am really curious. Like the biggest question they tell you when to know if you start to dominate the language. Has anyone here dreamt in English? Has anyone have dreams in English?
Not that I remember. No.
Maybe we have, but we don't remember, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Geronimo, do you want to share
No,
something?
never.
Oh, okay. There is this idea, internalization is when we start to use English not with other people, not with our teachers, with ourselves. When we use it inside, in our inner voice. For example, something that I, as a teenager, something that I did to learn and practice English, I would start to think in English, only think in English.
I do that a lot.
We do that. We internalized English in our case.
Or we talk to ourselves in English too.
That is another way to do it.
I
Some-
had a difficult, well, a health situation many years ago. I was 12 years old and I went into a deep coma due
Oh,
to a surgery. But the curious about, and not to a very long story, make it really short, is that after I woke up from being in coma, I could only think and speak in English. I couldn't remember Spanish.
okay. Because we
It took a
internalize it.
couple of weeks for me to recall the Spanish knowledge in my brain. I don't know how you would say, but I remember I would only remember how to speak in English.
Okay, that's because we internalize it a lot. And maybe when you were in a coma or in that situation, maybe inside you were only thinking in English. Your brain, everything was in English and he got stuck on the English chip. So that is something that we do. Internalization is when we as students start to use it for our own, thinking about it, dreaming in English, having inner monologues. That is something I do a lot. When I speak, for example, I'm studying French, I speak in French sometimes to myself. I know every teacher has done that. And we all have that like the look, right? Of, oh my God, he's speaking alone. And you're like, I'm practicing, let me alone, come on. And well, and also the zone of proximal development, or CPD. This is a topic we practice in other subjects, which, long story short, like It's just the learning that our students need has to go in order. It has to be like, if they are learning the verb to be, what is the next step? Well, the negative form. What is the next step? The interrogative, and so on and so on. We need to be careful when we teach and when we learn, because we cannot just jump all over the place. We have to teach and learn the very next thing. It's like an order, like a map. So the zone of proximal development is just that. The next things we need to learn to continue our journey. It depends on every student, every teacher, every class, but there are certain patterns to that. Like most books are done with this in mind, right? And the last one is the activity theory, which is pretty much our environment, the activities and the things we suffer in our environments. And there are three main factors: the available tools that we have as students or learners, the community that we have, the environment where we study, Morelia, Mexico City, Mexico as a whole, if we study in a private school, in a public school, all those things are going to change. And also we have the division of labor in community settings, which is pretty much the rules of each community, right? Like, according to the rules, my labor here is that I am the student. I have to follow all the instructions I have. The activity theory, just that, our environment, how we react to it, and how the environment reacts to us. So it's pretty much that. Any question about this part?
No.
Okay, we have one example here, don't worry for anything. How do you think that a student would speak in front of their parents? Would it be different to the way he speaks when he is with their friends?
Obviously.
Obviously,
Yes.
right? But you may think, why? It's the same language, it's the same learning, it's the same speaking. No, the social cultural is different. We have a different environment, different rules, different available tools. Everything changes. And this is something we need to also take into consideration. We might be like, oh, I have a really cool relationship with my students. We're friends. No, we're not, right? That's something we as teachers try to become friends with our students. No, it's not going to be like that. There are rules, there is a community, there's an environment, there's a division between ourselves. They're never going to speak to you as if you were their friends, obviously. You think they're going to curse in front of you? No. So that is a really good example. And we have identity theory. And this is a really good one. But, well, how much time we have left for this session? 2 minutes, but still fine. We can reconnect. In this case, the identity theory is not much about, because some people believe that this was more like about our personal identity in a sense of like nationality or pride, but not in this case. In this case, it's about respect. Now, when you were younger, when you were learning, and someone told you phrases like, oh, you have a good English for a Mexican. How would that make you feel? Good or bad?
Not that good, because
Well,
it depended on how they would say it. If it
Oh,
was
you
like
know
in
how
an
they
honest
say it.
manner, if it was in an honest manner of like really acknowledging your pronunciation, okay. But generally they do it in this like
Patronizing way, right? Oh,
Yes.
you have a good English. You have good English
oh, you're
for
Mexican.
a Mexican.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, poof. It doesn't make us feel good, right? Or when they tell you, oh, your accent is really interesting. Casi como de, ay, mejor mentame la madre ese joven. Yeah, your accent is really interesting. That affects us. If you're learning English and they tell you have a really interesting accent, you're like, oh, come on, man, just tell me I speak horribly. Okay. Or maybe, oh, you speak like a Mexican. That, it's a 50-50. Some people take pride of that. I've known people that they have a thick Mexican accent and they say, I'm not going to change it. I like my Mexican accent. You have the other side where some people just take it like an insult. This is up to you, this one. So some people have it take it as a good thing, some as a bad thing. But this is what I'm talking about. When they try to like insult your person, depending on how you learn, they insult your identity. And give me 10 more minutes of your time and we'll explain it. So let me just restart all the lesson of the session, and well, we're going to stop here, and everything is recorded, so don't worry about it.